Larger Fellowship, a Unitarian Universalist congregation with no geographical boundary, working toward creating a global spiritual community, rooted in profound love, which cultivates wonder, imagination, and the courage to act. Adapting to the COVID-19 pandemic has been difficult for many bricks and mortar congregations. Early on in the pandemic, we were in a unique position to assist many congregations with the transition. We hosted special episodes of The VUU, provided advice and counseling to religious professionals, and trained congregations for live streaming worship, all while providing robust online programming for our members. From worship to covenant groups, from classes to pastoral care, and from our monthly magazine to our letter writing ministry, we have found ways to build connection and community even through the screen. We have been a model for ministry on the margins, providing services for isolated Unitarian Universalists, becoming a spiritual lifeline for our members in prison, and investing in innovative ministry. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed even from a distance. Unitarian Universalists have faced many challenges in these times, and we continue to persevere and to fight for justice and equity for all people, especially during moments of crisis. We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Larger Fellowship. We are excited to bring you an all-new episode of The VUU. The VUU is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective. Every Thursday for the past 7 years, we have welcomed guests from every corner of the world. Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond. I hope today's show inspires you. Hope it builds your faith. Hope it gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life. Enjoy the message. Hello, welcome everyone from across the globe to The VUU, Voices of Universalism. We are starting season 10, episode 401. This is super exciting. I'm Aisha Hauser, pronouns are she, her, and I'm in Seattle, Washington, and the and coastal English people. We have an incredible guest today. We're going to introduce ourselves, and then I will introduce our guests. We save you around up to the end of our show today. So, Michael, Reverend Dr. Tino, how are you?
Good day, dear. It's good to be with you. I'm the Reverend Dr. My pronouns are they and them, and I'm calling you from New York, about 30 miles north of New York City, and the Kitchener and Wappinger Band of the Lenape Nation. It is an unusual September heat wave here in New York, so we're kind of melting. But it's all good. I'm indoors with air conditioning, and in the middle of our greatest flare. So I'll probably be unusually quiet today, but I wanted to support our attention and our guest, and I'm really looking forward to this and this show. Christina Rivera, how are you?
Hey everyone, good to see you. Good to be back from our hiatus during the Northern Hemisphere, and we're excited to be back, especially with this panel and talk today. I'm Christina. She to you from my ancestral lands of the Tino people on the island of, which is also known as Puerto Rico. And yeah, I'm thrilled. We're hoping that the hurricane that's coming to the Caribbean is going to go north of us, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. You just keep watching the radar. Janine has a do.
Hey friends, I'm Janine Gelsinger. I'm so happy to be back with you all for this season of The VUU. I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona, also the home of the Gotham people, and I'm back from my best Barbie summer and happy to be back with you all. It's only 88 right now in Phoenix, so it's almost pumpkin spice latte season for us here. That's a big cool down from where we were at. And just working on getting abortion into the Arizona state constitution. See how's it?
Hey, it's going well here. I am Reverend DC Fortune, pronouns he, him, and I am coming to you from Northumberland, Pennsylvania, which is the fine home of Joseph Priestley, and we are situated on the land of the Susquehannock people of the Lenni Lenape cohort. And yeah, it's much too. It's just sort of and I'm finding as I it gets harder, which is sort of thinky. But we are season 10. God, that's amazing, and episode 401. That's fabulous. Excited for today's show. Back to Aisha and let her do all the three things.
Thank you, DC. Welcome, everyone. This is so exciting. So I'm introducing our guest today, Rabbi Danya Ruttenberg. Rabbi Ruttenberg is an award-winning author who serves as scholar in residence at the National Council of Jewish Women. He received the Lives of Commitment Award from Auburn Seminary and was named by Newsweek as a leader by the Center for Progress and has been blue, read down her new book, Amends and Repair, Making Amends in an Unapologetic World, published by Beacon Press. Paperback September 13th, is a National Jewish Book Award and American Library Association Sophie Brody honor. Hailed by Ayanna Pressley as a must-read for anyone navigating the work of justice and healing, and is a common read for Unitarian Universities this year. So, Rabbi Danya, so I'm excited to how to start. What did you to write this book?
So, thank you so much for having me. I am honored to be here. So, in 2017, a thing called Me Too exploded, really exploded. As we know, many people started to tell their stories of abuse, and many prominent celebrities became named as abusers. Many of them came out with these lukewarm statements. Yes, I did it. It's really terrible for my family. Yes, I did it, and what's going to happen to my career? Never really the people who've been harmed, but acknowledging that they had in fact caused the harm. And I started to sound like we as a had started to say, well, okay, so does Matt Lauer sit in the corner for a while? Does he ever have a future in TV? BCK issued this statement, and when do we forgive him, basically? And when I a piece on this and asked me for a little quote, and I wrote a quote of God on the work of repentance in Judaism. So I wrote up a little piece on, like, if Louis C.K. or Matt Lauer or any of the guys were really doing the work and taking responsibility for the harm they had caused, and meant sincerely that they did not want to be that person anymore and didn't want to do the thing anymore, what would it look like? Like, how would we know? What outward signs would indicate that probably they were doing deep inner work based on the 5 steps? And, I sent my friend the quote, the piece came out, I sort of threw a paragraph on Twitter, as I did back in the days when Twitter was, less bad. And the response was beyond anything I could have imagined. You ask the harm to do stuff? Don't just labor unharmed and demand that they forgive and what? And I started to realize that there was a hole missing. There was a hole in our culture, right? That we so quickly rush into conversations about when are we forgiven, what's the minimum to be appalled, how quickly can we move? Are we done yet? Got to converse this. And this system that I grown up with as a Jew, these stages to the work of taking responsibility and beginning to change and repairing ability, and then not doing the thing again, all in ways as I read it as a trauma feminist rabbi, right? Center the victim, like that was, it's just missing from the conversation. And so I started kind of engaging with people on Twitter, and it led to an op-ed, which led to like, oh, actually these steps don't just apply in personal relationships and in the public sphere, but also to institutions that cause harm. And, oh my goodness, actually there's a useful lens when we're talking about national structural injustice. Oh, fascinating. And and then there was a book.
I think the things that I appreciate about that approach, because as we know in the United States, we just throw people in cages because we are deeply punitive and I was morbidly, comically, like those who are pro-life are the first ones to throw people away. So I think having, because we are abolitionists here, we have a ministry for incarcerated, and the road to abolition, what does it look like to repair? What kind of rather than the Puritans created climate. So having this lens framework, have people giving you feedback? Have they? I don't want to say tried it because that's weird, but like, has anyone given you feedback in their lives or what you've kind of laid forth?
I've gotten all sorts of feedback, actually, that honestly have shocked me. Both individual stories, people talking about how the book has given them path, because I talk about, as I read Maimonides, who was a 12th century philosopher, theologian, Torah scholar, physician to the Saladin in Egypt, and many other things, workaholic, and possibly history's most confident man, if possible. So I take his ideas and his thinking, which is really instrumental in sort of the Jewish framing on this stuff. And I see 5 steps. And so I talk about these 5 steps and apply them in different ways. And I've heard people talk about how this has helped them to heal family rifts. And I've gotten feedback from organizations working on violence prevention and addressing sexual violence in communities. And I've heard that it evidently is being taught as a core text in the policy masters in the state of Washington, which means that now people are going to make policy in the state of Washington, a feeder school. Washington, it'll be a school, and people will be helping to shape the state, will be thinking about and what and so it's been overwhelming. flowing, and gives me hope that we don't have to go back to computer models again and again.
Yeah. So in Arizona, I'm on a coalition of partners that does abolition work, specifically work on shifting city budgets to reflect levels of care and criminalization or the police work. And your work has been really helpful in based in, but also for universalist theology. We don't throw people away. That's kind of a circle of big enough fun. And I know a lot of congregations right now are really grappling with understanding that there's boundaries that need to be set, that harmful behavior cannot continue. And what does it look like to have a model of transformative justice where there's for someone to both be accountable for the harm they're causing, and sometimes that means they have to take a break from community, right? And what's the method to bring them back to community? I wonder, can you talk about your thoughts on that? Because I know there's a lot of things, and you just watching that are going with that issue right now.
Yes, absolutely. So when we talk about sentence, we don't say, oh, you caused no problem. You can just hang around. Consequences, right? That's it. Honestly, that's the forgiveness. We dump all over on the harm and pressure them to forgive, and we functionally maintain the status quo, right? Nothing else really changes. Here, if harm has been caused, we say to the offender, we'll get to the steps in a moment, like you have to do this work, which immediately begins with, I guess we're getting into this. Step one, owning the harm that you caused, right? Fully, no hedging, no, but I meant, but I'm really a nice person, but I didn't mean to, right? What did you do? If you weren't paying attention when you stepped on my foot, then I don't care that you didn't mean to step on my foot. I am sitting here with broken toes. And I care that you really think of yourself as a really nice person. If you said something racist, then nobody's doing an x-ray. We don't care about your bones. What we're concerned about is the person who just was harmed, and addressing that and making sure that no one else will be harmed until you do your work. First, take care of the person who has been hurt, and also make sure there are no future victims. And real really check yourself are the first to jump in and want to make sure that things are going to be okay, aren't going to happen again. And two is starting to change, right? You need the harm deal as public appropriate and for help. It's saying that we all do alone. Party, like this happened. Real, it wasn't you, no, it wasn't. This isn't your fault. Well, actually, saying that they did it, right? All of those things. It's important for everybody. You are the one who's owning it, and then we have you start to change. Do you need therapy? Do you need to call your sponsor? Do you need to begin a path to sobriety, right? Do you need to ditch the people around you behavior best? Do you need to begin a path of education around anti-racism or trans liberation? Do you need to blah blah blah? What do you need to begin to become the person who doesn't do that anymore? Right? And then we get into ends, then apologize, and then we're doing the thing again. And so harm happens in community, let's say. We're going to first expect to do the work. We are not to assume they are going to be back mixed, available to people until they're safe. If they're sincere and really doing the work, and if we're hearing the victim and their experience and their needs, they will get to determine the pacing of this. And if the harm doer is doing the work really probably pretty quickly, the victim is going to be like, okay, I think we're good. So and so may never ever be my best friend, but they can come to bingo night or whatever, right? If the harm doer is not interested in doing this work, they are not safe people. They're probably, not going to be doing the things that need to happen to make sure that they're not running around doing it again to other people or to that person again. And so in community, we have to prioritize keeping people safe. So we say you can't come around until we're confident that you are safe. And whether that's saying you're not welcome until, or you are only welcome under the conditions that, but Shir Berkovitz, who runs Sacred Spaces, Jewish Sacred Spaces, brilliant scholar and things. We're keeping these around sexual abuse. It has a safety plan for bringing people who back, right? Assuming the person is truly and has really done the thing, welcome to they have to have somebody chaperone at all times. We are notifying parents. We are the person never to be in these spaces or to be in the building when children are there. There are all sorts of conditions, right? It's not fine. We all understand, and this person understands what they did, understands that it is absolutely beyond unacceptable, and their priority is keeping kids safe. And so they are going to be not just willing to agree, they are going to be enthusiastic about this plan, because this plan is going to keep kids safe. Right? So that, there are ways to reintegrate people into community that are going to be okay for everyone, even after great harm happened. But the person must be penitent. It must be with consent of those who the harmed parties, right? And the work has to happen to keep it safe.
Challenging. I came across this once when I was living in Northern New Jersey, working in New York City, where sex offender, one of the conditions of parole or maybe probation, most cases are fully prepared. So here, what you just laid out is really important for us to shift our paradigm. There can be a path to repair. Yes, there has to be a lot of safeguards, but we can do that. It's important to do that, and no having any kind of repair happen without a lot of investment in each other. That is so important. I think Janine had a question.
I did. Rabbi, I want to express my personal gratitude to you. When in 2019, I was a staff member at a congregation, and I was let go during a ministerial misconduct investigation with the minister. And instead of the board furthering that investigation, they decided to instead let go staff that had complaints. And in order to try to repair that harm, I asked so many times, what to come up with this. And I had a hard time answering the question because I just didn't know. I was the one experiencing harm, and I wanted someone else to tell me what was possible.
Right.
And so I had to like do some research to trying to figure out what does repair look like, what would it feel to feel like I was back in covenant with this community or after the harm had happened. It was actually extremely helpful, and even feeling like I could ask for what I actually needed. And I think just your model, those 5 steps are so clear. I was wondering if you could explain a little bit the difference between amends and apology, because those are different steps, and that was really eye-opening when I first read it.
Sure. First of all, I am both extremely sorry and now quite full of rage on your behalf. I'm so sorry that happened to you. It's completely unacceptable. And every religious denomination should have, and most don't. My own is in the process of reworking its stuff. So we, God willing, will. There should be there should be there are options. This is what this could look like for you. You know, would you like a sandwich? Would you like a salad? Would you like a bowl of soup with these 4 appetizers? There are 15 other ways that different survivors have dealt with this in the past. What would feel like wholeness to you? You could have none of them if none of them these are the right answer. But some starting places for a conversation. So amends apology. Amends is about you can't undo what you did, right? If you've caused harm, the harm caused, and that's always going to be the case, no matter what. And like, always have the option to try to sew up that hole in the universe that we caused to the best of our ability. And sometimes we, can't ever fit it. Of people who cause significant harm and have spent the rest of their lives working to policy in their communities and become advocates for victims to, or undo the fact that they, back teenagers, right? Like they can't fix that, spend the rest of their lives trying to make things better for people, right? Sometimes it's about money to a victim, and in some cases survivor is the correct label. In some cases, victim is the correct label. It's a very personal one. I usually use victim as sort of a catch-all. In some cases, it's about time. It's about donating, your energy, your expertise, making connections. Sometimes it's directly to the harm party. Sometimes it's indirectly to others who have been affected in a similar way. Needless to say, step 2, starting to change, is really important, right? How do we make sure that the thing isn't going to happen again by you to others? And we can't forget that. So on an individual level, you can see the person is starting to change and their amends process is going to help them to grow. On a structural level, HR is going to give the person whose complaint was shunted aside maybe flex time, and maybe they're going to pay for their therapy, and this, that, and other, and some compensation for suffering. But if they're not changing policies so that the next complaint isn't shunted aside, then we haven't fixed anything, right? Then we have to make sure, the board was responsible for this happening. Can we, how do we do that? If we are giving reparations with repair right there in that word, but we haven't address the fact that we're running on white supremacist systems and structures, then the harm will be repeated again and again, right? So we have to think holistically. And then there's the apology, which is the words, but we need actions first. Show me that you're doing the work. Fix it first. And then I want to hear your words. And the reason that apology is step 4, not step 1, is that when you're acknowledging, like owning what you did, which is already really hard, and starting to change, and then amends, like all of these things are learning opportunities. And you don't tell somebody what their amends are, you ask what they want, right? What they need, because what you think they might want as amends and what might actually do the job might be very different things, right? I'm going to pay your medical bill. I have great medical insurance, but you stepped on my foot and now I just missed this conference, and the impacts of that is not actually the conference, but this other thing I was supposed to have this, but this is really what you did over here. Oh, okay, right? Boom, light bulb. So there's all this learning that happens. By the time you get to apology, you're not the harm doer anymore. You're already somebody done to change and grow. And so apologizing more really can get hard. That it actually gets a little better. It did, and it doesn't. And so it's a different act, one in which you are able to see who you are, what you did to them.
I'm so appreciating the conversation, and I'm thinking about the membership of our congregation, the Church of the Larger Fellowship, that puts this show. And as we mentioned before, we have over 1,700 of our members are currently incarcerated. We serve over 1,700 incarcerated Unitarian Universalists as part of our ministry. So I'm wondering, is there something you would say to those folks who, some of whom have caused harm, not all of whom, some of whom have, and all of whom have been harmed by our systems of incarceration and injustice, not justice system, but the injustice system. And I know that you understand that, because there's a whole chapter on it in the book. But is there something you would say directly to those 1,700 people about this process? Spot.
So sorry. God, I wish I really.
If there's, that's okay.
Yeah, no, hold on. Give me listening. Obviously, are not, the worst thing you may not be in for reason have anything to do with anything you've done, or like this is all that. And nothing in the system attends to your gives you any opportunity to grapple in any way with the moral implications of your actions, if what in fact was that you caused harm. And if you are able to do that work while being caged, you are operating on a profound moral level beyond any of the rest of us, honestly. But you are being harmed. You are being harmed. And all of the experiences of the contemporary carceral system of poverty and trauma. And we as a society have an obligation to care for you and love on you as someone who is a victim of harm by the state. And I know that our society, our country is not and will not generally. That is the obligation that we have. And the world that many of us are trying to work towards.
And that's certainly a large part of the ministry that we do. It's telling folks who are engaged in the system exactly that. We call it worthy now, in fact, because that's the message we want them to understand, that they are worthy human beings.
Yeah.
So it is unlikely that many of our incarcerated members will see this show.
I'm sure.
But we run a pen pal program, for example. So many of our incarcerated members have World Pen Pals, and we'll make sure the free World Pen Pals have access to this show, and they might be able to relay the message.
Amazing.
In ways that are meaningful.
Amazing.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Danya. I was actually married to a Jewish man for almost 30 years. One of the things that was always present in our lives is what's happening in Israel. So I'm curious. Now, this may be way hot button, so feel free to pass. Set this book with Israeli government that could really use it. No, I'm curious.
Aisha with the hard
I dream of the world. I have, like, I knew it was happening at the time. I was next to him at a dream of a world. Be to years at all what I think. That would be helpful. But he labels my friends enemies of the state, so I don't think that's likely to happen. I could wear my "There's no democracy with occupation" T-shirt and sort of waltz up to the prime minister's residence and hand it to him next time I'm in town. But I mean, there are the levels, right? There's the people who are causing harm and know they're causing harm and don't care, is so difficult to work with. And when they have state power, it's so painful. We're just on the other side of the Trump years over here. And when other people are acting out of trauma and fear, that doesn't help either. Know that too. So, yeah, I just wish we could get everybody out and do something like a great truth telling, where we start to get everybody to tell all the stories. And one of the brilliant moves by Archbishop Tutu with the TRC, with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, is that he had people tell the truth and he had it televised. And so he said they can no longer pretend that they do not know, right? They know. And I have long wondered if that kind of truth telling would not be helpful also in Israel, because it's very easy to be there and to pretend that you are in a place where you're a mile away, right? There are not great horrific things happening, great horrific abuses of human rights and safety. And it's very tempting to stay in that bubble, right? I understand the temptation, and I understand also people's fear, the fear and trauma that people are bringing, and you know, they can no longer say they do not know. No, is can cause great shifts.
Tanner. So I just mentioned it in the chat. Like, comments the entire culture system to account this way. And Libra, and we talk about moral science, and the larger the lower the individual ownership here. And a lot of what I think we see, like Janine described it, is this harm. Get congregation or a board or our congregational cultures that have done harm. How do we hold that sort of collective to account in a similar way? I mean, I come out of a 12 background, so my is, you know, like getting everybody on board to say, oh God, we have a problem here. Like, all it takes is one person to say, I don't think so, and the whole thing falls apart. Any thoughts on how we, like, how do you hold, you know, the who administration, how do you hold 45, the shouty cat, how do you hold the whole administration accountable? How do you get something that big, acknowledge the harm that it's.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were.
Yeah. No.
I think yes, a super important question, and we don't have to go that far, right? We can look at our own Unitarian Universalist Association and the ways in which we've, you know, ministers that we knew were perpetrators of ministerial misconduct, and trying to hold that entire organization. How do we do that? You know, because I think that's the microcosm of how do we do it larger and larger and larger, right?
Right. And I think the answers are the same no matter what. And it's the good old fashioned answer is you organize. You know, it's the same. It's the tools, right? You know, how did how did Me Too? Well, Me Too wasn't really organized. That was, but it's we had the ability. Somebody said, you know, and yes, and me, and me, and me, and go, right? It's helpful sometimes to do behind the scenes organizing. You know, sometimes it's one person hears someone else tell the story of being harmed by the same organization and saying, God, that happened to me too. How about we just decide that we don't want anybody else to be harmed by them? Oh, wait, my other friend has a story too. Who else do they know? Suddenly, there's a letter going out signed by 13, 15 people instead of just one person saying, hey, it's me. And that needs to be taken seriously. And suddenly, and I may be referring to a specific situation. I may be alluding to a very specific situation about a very big institution right now. And that may suddenly kickstart multiple investigations, because if you bring enough receipts, people might need to take it seriously, right? So that's one thing is, right, you can get enough people together and organize, or you write the letter and you get the 30 initial signatories of your brief, you open it up and you say, okay, well, all the other clergy are signed when they see that a bunch of other cool kids have signed first, and so everybody wants to be, you know, involved and supportive of to not let this pressure back, make them back. I've done that too. Or Black Lives Matter. Me too. You say enough already. We are start like sick of it. But somebody to say, okay, 6 o'clock, you know, at location, we're going to show up and figure this out. So at some point, somebody needs to say there needs to be a leader here, and today it's me. And honestly, I swear to God, I think 75% of leadership is saying something should happen, and I guess today it's going to be my job, right? And just saying, guys, come on, we're going to make this happen. And you get, this is why Trump was, I believe, was not able to do as much as he could have, is because there was already a force pushing back. Even if we didn't get all of the accountability all of the way, and I'm sorry, the guy's been indicted 15 times already because people push back.
Rabbi Danya, I can't thank you for this seminal work. And one of the things that is true about both the United States and Israel is they are settler colonial entities, are colonial settler, whatever which we exported in the United States, showed the rest of the world how to be awful in really heinous ways. And your book, I think, will offer hopefully a place for folks to have a framework with, you know, in addition to something like Truth and Reconciliation, but it is really profound. And do you have any, I know you have to leave in a couple of minutes, do you have anything left on your heart you'd like to share with us? We are so honored. I'm really grateful to Beacon Press for publishing your book, and that your book is the Common Read. Thank you so much for being on The View. I will give you the last word for your last couple minutes, and we will continue the show after Rabbi Danya heads off to her next interview.
Thank you. I'm honored. I want to nuance. People sometimes talk about Israel as a colonial entity, and it's more complicated and nuanced because it was a country that people were also refugees from genocide, and it is very both end. And I am 100% for the absolute unquestioned liberation and of Palestinians. And I think we have to put the history of anti-Semitism in context. And Israel is not the same thing as some money, and we need to frame that and nuance that and contextualize as we talk about things. And the main thing I want to just underscore, and I don't want to like fall down that rabbit hole. The thing I want to say is this: we are all victims of harm. We are all bystanders of harm, and we are all harm doers, right? This is all true, both individually in our own lives. This is true in the institutions of which we are part. This is, nationally, maybe we're not all in the same place of power, but we all occupy all of these roles in various ways. And so understanding in a nuanced, thoughtful way what it means to truly own work of repair and healing, and to do it as a gift. I'm going to take responsibility for the harm I caused, because it will help me to grow. It will help someone else to heal. And it will create a more hopeful future for everyone. I think it's our best hope for everybody's tomorrow, honestly. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was truly an honor. Thank you. So that was amazing. Rabbi Danya had to go to, like I said, next show. So we could do UU Roundup. And I'm wearing my shirt. I wanted to show it off. I bought this in Birmingham, Alabama, where I officiated a lesbian wedding held at a venue owned by a Black lesbian couple that at one time hosted cake meetings. So talk about reclaiming. Let's claiming all. Let's all get on the screen and what UUA we have in the last 9 minutes. And welcome back, everybody. So great to be with everyone. Mwah, 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 mwah. Consensual kisses from afar to everyone and hugs.
Yes, yes, yes. New Year roundup. Water ceremony this weekend here. That's what we're doing.
Yay. Anyone
else have we
else? How Chris, I hope that hurricane avoids you know, and I guess is it possible to avoid all the islands, like all of Puerto Rico?
Right now, right now it's tracking north of all of us, and would probably looks like it may get into Florida, but you know, that's the way it's tracking. It's tracking really, really close to the point where even if the main mass of it is still north, it's still going to send a lot of wind and higher water elevations. So we'll see. We'll keep you all posted for sure. Yeah. Absolutely, for sure. You wrap up. It's as per typical for Unitarian Universalism. As much as we try and change the model, we just go a little quieter during the summer in our churches and communities. So now, having beaten my head against that wall for over a decade, I try to think of it more as that we are trying to be reflective and reflective together, so that when we come back spiritually together in the fall, that we are ready to do the work that Spirit sets before us.
Well said.
I'll buy that.
I do know a little tiny piece of VUU news that Beloved Conversations registration was extended an extra week. So if you were thinking about signing up, dig into some unlearning for liberation or to join a BIPOC and build some new relationships, I think you have a couple days left.
Nice. I've been kind of thinking about. Go ahead.
No, go.
Well, no, this is an existential question. I was thinking about Michael. You were naming how hot it is in New York, and basically the planet's boiling. And even every now and then I'll be like, we're living in an existential crisis as humanity that's getting worse and worse, and the earth is boiling. And I'm going to take Gracie for a walk and go out tonight with my friends. I mean, I guess as humans we have to live with a certain cognitive dissonance, but when the enormity, like I'll have it for a split second and it'll immediately go out of my mind, or else I will, curl into a ball in the corner and not function. So the cognitive dissonance of we are, what's going to happen to humanity in the next 50 years. I don't know.
I was talking to
keep
the other day, and they said, well, just think this is the least hot that it's going to be for your life. And I'm like, true and not helpful.
Right?
Like,
Yeah.
And so helpful.
Aren't you a bundle of damn sunshine? Jeez. Man, how are things out there in the desert, Janine?
I mean, hot and dry.
Right? In Arizona, state motto is, but it's a dry heat.
I mean, tourists say that to each other.
Yeah, meanwhile,
It's pretty hot in the desert, right?
Honestly, but seriously, when my kids and I talk sometimes about how long we think we can stay in Arizona, and there will be water here and what our backup plan is. So, yeah, it's all the things, right? I mean, we're like living in a late stage capitalist climate crisis hellscape. And how do we keep on like making change where our lane is and caring for each other in community? And that, I think, is always the question. I feel really blessed. This Saturday, I'm starting a cohort with my friends at BLM Phoenix, guests of the show, right? Friends of the show, BLM Phoenix Metro. and some other UU faith leaders, as well as a lot of community organizers. And we're doing a program called the Institute for Radical Permission by Adrienne Marie Brown and Sonia Renee Taylor. And it's about exactly that. Like, how do you honor your body? How do you honor your relationships? And how do you find your deepest yes, so that you know where you fight and you know how to stay alive? So yeah, I think that's our work always, right? And here we are. And at its best, UUism has a container for how to do that.
And the orcas. Have y'all heard about the orcas flipping over yachts? Go orcas.
Loving that.
Go orcas. I love it. One day we need to have somebody on the show that can explain that is this really late stage capitalism? Or like my deepest fear is like, this is mid-stage capitalism.
Oh.
And
Jesus, Chris.
I know, right?
God.
So I think I'd love to one day have somebody on that could either assure me that it's late and it's okay, or reframe. I don't know.
Right? It's like almost hopeful if it's the collapse. Like, is this collapse? That'd be great. Let's collapse it, burn it down, revolution. But if it's not the end, how much worse is it going to get, I guess?
Don't
Exactly
ever
right.
ask that question.
That's why I'm pushing for revolution. Like, let's end this shit now before it gets worse.
God. Oh, God.
Well, on that happy note,
Right?
That wander through my mind.
Can I just say that my congregation is doing really great things here in the middle of central Pennsylvania.
Right.
And it's little bitty bites of all things, right? You know, you can eat an elephant and they're just like taking a bite and keeping going, and taking a bite and keeping going. And it's better sitting and cursing in the dark, you know?
yeah.
Shout out to all of our friends who are starting seminary or going back to seminary. I've seen those
Yes.
pictures in the past couple of days. It gives me hope.
Friends who are currently in Transylvania at the
Yes.
International Association for Religious Freedom Conference.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's a prayer for all of our friends who are preparing for the MFC meeting in a couple of weeks.
Amen.
Yes.
And for those of us on the MFC who have a new understanding of what a lot of reading means.
Right. It is. Sure, everybody, you join us next week for The View, where we will be talking about our Worthy Now prison ministry program.
Sweet.
And some of you'll get sneak peek early information on some of our new programs that we're launching.
Yay.
Wonderful.
Yay.
It's so
Thank
good to
you
be
all
back.
so much. Episode 401 coming to a close. So excited. So good to be with everyone. See you next week. Thank you for joining us. Special thanks to those of you who give generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible. You can click the link in the description to give now, or visit clfuu.org/give for more information. We hope you will join us next week for another episode of The View.